Hey guys, welcome back. Lately I've been binge watching a lot of cyberpunk films, like Ghost in the Shell, Blade Runner, and all those striking visuals and set designs and all the effort that went into them really inspired me to build something. And there are a few things that I like in life. Sci-fi, metalwork, and weapons. So I went over to my scrap metal bin looking for some inspiration, and I found the brass plate that I used for my Mercy Halo, and it got my noggin jogging. I always wanted to make a sword or a dagger of my own. I wanted to make something never seen before, but also technically challenging, and I had a rough idea what look I was going for. I started off with very utilitarian designs, but I knew that I will use brass. Brass has a certain vintage look, so I want to use that to create a grand impression, something with a story but still fitting in the future setting. I think it should look like it's gonna be used at the end of the movie for the final duel, the hero prop. Now, sci-fi things are precise, and it's hard to make precise things by hand, so I start with a bigger piece of brass and I trim it down to shape. It's wasteful, but for what I have in mind, I need precision. And you get some free glitter for your workshop, so that's nice. The brass part is almost done, now onto the steel. Now, stainless steel is much harder than brass. Even the softest alloys are above and beyond it. This plate is 304 grade, which is not the hardest, but not the hardest to work with, so it's a nice middle ground. It will make a fine cutting edge. But there are two big issues with my design. Number one, you can't weld brass and steel together, they're just too different. And number two, both metals expand at different rates when heated. The first one we can overcome by using a third filler metal, silver, in a process called silver brazing. It forms a joint that's as strong as welding, so I'm not worried about that. What I am worried about though is the different rates of expansion. See, different metals expand at different rates when heated, and I'm worried about what's going to happen when the parts are joined in high temperature and cool off. There's definitely going to be some weird internal stresses going on, and I'm not sure if it's for better or worse really. So here's me melting some silver, making a mess, the usual. But in the end I did manage to get the silver into the gap. After sanding I couldn't see any warping or cracking, and I was so relieved. It meant that my design actually worked. So with great relief I trimmed down the excess material to get the proportions just right. I'm adding some details to make the flat surface a bit more interesting to the eye, These are just for the looks, but sometimes the holes you see in knives do serve a purpose. Sometimes they're used in manufacturing, so the machines could get a proper grip to work on them and for cutting and sharpening, which actually kinda fits the cyberpunk theme of this one. There won't be any rivets or screws to hold the handle in place, and I think I came up with a cool way to have it both solid but also elegant. Fits like a glove. Ah, that's so satisfying. I want the finished dagger to look striking and purposeful, so the handle has to match the blade. My plan is to have this intersecting piece serve both as a decoration but also part of the structure. And paired with a solid brass pommel, it should give a calculated, geometric look to it. I'm talking about the bottom part of the handle here. I thought about stamping a design in it, but I decided to leave it clean because I thought just rounding it off and leaving it simple makes it a bit more mysterious. Kinda anonymous, like a gun with a silencer. After sanding off all the grime, it got pretty shiny. Actually so much so that it was hard to show off on camera. You kinda need a lot of light for that. Do you like my sci-fi work lamps? I was thinking about making a tutorial about how I made them. They're fully adjustable so I can get the angle just right for the video. And I think the rest of my magnetic system is pretty cool too. These ones are not magnetic though. Okay, here comes the weird part. I use regular clay to get the shape of the handle. I'm gonna cast it from resin, and I'm making it a little bit bigger because I'm gonna sand it to shape. It's my first time casting anything, so that's why everything is so bad from this point in the video, but you learn by getting your hands dirty, so I don't think it's too shameful. I figured how much silicone I'll need for the mold and greased up the glass with Vaseline so it wouldn't stick to it. I don't know if this is the thing I should be using, but here we go. Oh, no, what are you doing? Rest in peace, kitchen skills. Now I add a tiny amount of hardener, I think it's like 5% per weight, and it kinda looks like food coloring, which is great because you can see how well it's mixed. It kinda looks like half melted strawberry ice cream. I suspend the blade into the mold and pour in the silicone. To be honest, I thought it was gonna be a bit more watery, but in the end it worked out. I left the mold cure for a day. And it was around this moment that I realized I made a mistake. The glass of course cracked, which meant that the Operation Boiled Egg was a go. Freeing the mold was only half the battle though. Come on! Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle! Finally! God, why does it have to be pink? I got an idea. I bet you thought I'm gonna make something inappropriate, right? Epoxy resins come in two parts, and when you mix them together they cure into a hard, solid chunk. I want my handle to be black, so after I mix the resin, I add a tiny bit of dye. I mix it well and I pour it into the mold. And I pour the excess into some gem forms. So today's the day! I left it standing still for like, I don't know, 24 hours or something. But yeah, let's see if I need to cut it out of the mold or it will surrender willingly. Spit it out! Spit it out! I think I'll just go ahead and make an incision and slice it open. Come on. Get out, get out, get out. Now I'm gonna try to sand it down and shape it into a nice handle shape and then polish it into a glossy finish. I honestly didn't expect it to be this messy. Yeah, it's coming together pretty well, but I need to work on the taper between the handle and the blade. Man, stuff like that makes you appreciate your dust mask. I don't want to leave marks on the blade, so I switched to hand sanding. And before polishing I did a pass with 2000 grit sandpaper. First I used the brown polishing compound, which is pretty coarse. The surface of the blade still needs a bit of work. I don't want it perfect, but it should be shiny. And the resin needed some work too. I don't know, is this shiny enough? I don't have a polish for brass specifically, so I decided to try the finest grit polish that I do have. It's the same aluminum magnesium polish that I used for my animatronic wings. I figured brass is soft like aluminum, so it should work, and I think it did. Now, just like you, I'm also curious how sharp it is. Ah, that's sharp. Wow. Okay. Shring. It's like a razor. I wonder if I could shave with it. It's sharp enough to cut hair. Holy. Okay, now I have a bald patch on my wrist, but how crazy is that? This is sharp enough to shave with. It's so crazy. How did it even get so sharp? Here I tried to show how crisp and reflective it got. Of course it has some tiny imperfections, but that's okay. I think it adds some realism and character. Honestly, I really didn't expect it to turn out so good. I really do think this would fit in somewhere in the geisha restaurant scene. Also, it was really fun trying out casting and other materials for a change, and that's gonna be another thing I'll be getting into for sure. Now I just need to come up with some ideas for what kind of display case or a stand I should make for it. If you have any suggestions, please let me know. This video took a while to make, so I really appreciate you checking in on me, and spending some time in the workshop here together. And of course, thank you for all the support you've been showing, all the feedback that I've been getting, and the growth of the channel. It's been great, and I really appreciate it. So I hope you liked it, maybe learned something, and I'll see you in the next one.